back for the continuation of the Canton Trunk. We hope you're enjoying the story. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons so you can get updates on future stories and uploads. Enjoy chapters 12 to 14.
Chapter 12. I spent some time visiting the consular offices, but none of them had a record of Matthias Higbee. The Thai government, however, found a record of J.M. Higbee, who had been held in the Maung Thai compound, having been moved there from the camp at Chiang Dao. It wasn't a very good gamble, but anything seemed better than sitting around Bangkok, waiting for Van Schelt to decide whether it was worthwhile to stick knives into us. Chiang Dao should have been a 12-hour train ride, but flat wheels and a series of hotboxes made it stretch out to 48. The city was more Chinese than Thai, and that gave it an air of enterprise. It lay on a terraced hillside, at about 300 meters of altitude. An ancient city, its streets hammered hard by the feet and cartwheels of 200 generations. For men have lived there ever since the traders of South China began traveling the pass of Hawaii Sai to exchange the silks of Canton for the rubies of Cathay. The station at Chiang Dao is one of those bastardized pieces of architecture, built with public monies and designed to maintain the Siamese artistic traditions over and above the Western steel and concrete engineering formula. Beyond the station was a big white stucco building of what had been Nippon Dow Nakorn, a tree oil concern, and beyond that, the extensive teak and rubber warehouses of England's Borneo Company. No doubt, it was through the influence of these influential concerns that this portion of the city was paved and laid out in rectangular blocks. But beyond that, the work of the White Hand was not discernible, and the city became planless and interminable. A Thai-born Chinese operated a little cavern, where he stored civet glands gathered by Katong Luang tribesmen, but his sense of smell had become so paralyzed by his business that he was unable to detect any odor whatever in our scrap of silk. The second afternoon, however, I turned up a fragment of information. An English engineer who was on his way out after testing certain northern zinc-copper complexes for a selective flotation process told me he once had a friend named Herman Glasser who was associated with a Matthias Higbee in some sort of a mine in the Hui Hong Sorn. Glasser, he thought, had died in an internment camp. With that hint, we hired an ancient Chevrolet and made a 3-day journey over rutted bull trails to the Sorn. We stopped at a miserable mining town called Haikong, where Baonan tribesmen brought down gems and placer gold and gold in quartz high grade, which had been stolen from the stopes of Karenni Consolidated across the high peaks. Chinese-owned shops along the crooked streets where they traded for such loot, and bought skins and wood barrel and crude opium from the Mon Khmer peoples who cultivated the little clearings. Sapphires? Yes, they received a few, but no star sapphires had been seen there for 20 years, and none of them had heard of men named Higbee or Glasser. We filled the tank with petrol at 10 baps per liter and drove on across miserable trails to Pahok, and from there to Takwa, and thence to the village of Tien at the edge of the great teak country. Fruitless. At Tien, Mr. Higbee lay for 10 days, turning his stomach lining out for our inspection with the fortnightly dysentery. A Chinese herbalist fixed him up with Honggorn root and egg white, and it was 3 weeks to the day when we rolled once more along the streets of Chiang Dao. A hotel, a bathtub, and real sheets. It seemed like the luxury of Shanghai's own Broadway mansions, or the Cathay. Even in our failure, we gave thanks. "Take a few days' rest, Mr. Higbee," Hernandez said. Soothe your stomach with good brandy and your eyes with beautiful women. Hear music. You'll look on things differently after that. Yes, we all had need of relaxation. The filth, the disease, the seething poverty of the East. These are not things a man can endure without his dreams. This land's mysticism and its opium are not accidents, sir. One must have visions in the midst of wretchedness. One must build his holy of holies. His Angkor Wat must be made to rise from the jungle rot. That night we forgot the silk and had whiskey at the International Club. We went on. Another bar. A Siamese theater where men sat cross-legged on rugs and drank local rice beer while they watched native women execute their dumb show dances. These hummingbird women, with their too many clothes, spat Hernandez. Symbolism. Pah, I tell you, I wouldn't trade one bedraggled Pavlova from a Julio Street dive down in Tampico for a harem of them. A Portuguese fiber buyer from one of the trading houses overheard Hernandez and sat down. Senors, I overheard, and I agree. But do not think we have no dancing woman in Chengdao. Oh ho, what a mistake to make. But come, you must see her. Who? Asked Hernandez, showing interest. The woman. Wai Lang, she is called, after the blossom she wears in her hair. Where is this sultry goddess? I will take you. Chapter 13. The Portuguese took us downhill from the new city of reinforced concrete, along a street so narrow, the pedestrians were crowded inside the shop doors whenever two bull carts passed. It was heavy with the odor of humankind, of molded burlap, of rancid animal grease from 10,000 generations of fat ducks succeeding each other above the doorway of the food stalls. Your princess, she is a long way from Covent Garden, I complained, for my foot gives me trouble on rough streets. The Portuguese chuckled. Covent Garden, of that I have never heard. But wait until you have seen this place, the White Dragon. A purple banner with a conventional white dragon marked a dingy stairway leading down. This was the place. It didn't look like much, but the Chinese are like that. I have seen temples fit for Venus, beyond doorways which even the spiders had abandoned. The stairs led to a large room, its size accentuated by the extreme lowness of the ceiling, and by the many fancy carved boxwood pillars which supported it. There were small round tables, each with 4 chairs, spaced so closely that a large man, like myself, had difficulty in picking his way. Decorative silken screens were tacked along the walls. Woven rattan covered the floor, and the place was cluttered with Chinese bric-a-brac. Incongruously, in the midst of this atmosphere, hung a row of bare electric bulbs, and in the niches of the walls, half a dozen electric fans. The fans, incidentally, were futile, for all they did was blow back the air you had already breathed. A Chinese place, yes, but its customers ranged through the racial heterogeneity of the Orient. There were Siamese, and Lukchin, and Malay, and Cochin, and Europeans from Dane to Croat, and even a few strong-faced Arabs ignored the sinful odor of alcohol and roasted pork. The place was about 2/3 full. No particular excitement, no music, no dancing girls. At the far end of the room was a little elevated stage. At one side of this stood a Chin organ with bamboo pipes, each attached to a calabash, and leaning against the wall was an assortment of oriental instruments. Tom-toms, big and little bells, a sarinda, a kin, and several long-throated banjos. At the other side of the stage was an entrance covered by heavy, glass-beaded drapes. We ordered French brandy, and oh miracle of Allah, they brought it. Cellier de M. Portneuf, Paris, vintage 1924. I did not believe the seal when I broke it. These Chinese are natural-born counterfeiters. But the taste, the tang, without aftershudder, the glow of the cognac grape, these were not susceptible to counterfeit. And at only 35 bahts per liter. Chapter 14. A half hour passed. An hour, who knows? We drank the French liquor. Suddenly, I became conscious of the place. I looked around. It had become crowded with men. Every chair was occupied, and men stood closely along the walls. There was no ventilation. The air was stifling. "Let's get out," said Mr. Higby. "Wait." I pulled him back to his chair. Hernandez felt it too. The tension, the repressed excitement, the anticipation. I looked at their faces. I saw their eyes all staring at the little, draped doorway beyond the stage. The curtains finally swung aside, and a group of musicians came in. They straggled across the stage and took up places on stools and cushions, fingering their assorted instruments. After a few preliminary twangs from one of the long-throated banjos, the music began. A tinkle of bells, the weird, oscillating screech of the silk-stringed serinda, the broken, pulsating throb of the tom-toms, the apparently unrelated sounds of kin and cymbal and cheng. I know the abomination of the Oriental orchestra to the Western ear, and to me, a musician, pure blasphemy. But there is a depth to Chinese music. Beneath its surface of noise and discord, pulsate notes of purest rhythmic beauty. The crowd, however, had not come to hear music. They still stared at the curtains, and at last a woman glided out. Lithe and tall she was, her skin the hue of copper, oiled and shining like satin from the bazaars of Baghdad, under the yellow glare of the electric bulbs. Beautiful. Ah, what a poor word. Still it must be used. Not the Chinese beauty of the broad face, the wide, placid eyes, the short limbs, and not the teacup beauty of your bandy-legged Siamese. Her beauty was not of one race. She was the universal beauty, this woman, Wai Lang. She came slowly, almost carelessly, with a sway of her thinly draped hips, looking across the press of men as though she had contempt for them and their hungry eyes. She paused in the center of the dancing floor, lifted her arms above her head, and bent her hands horizontally to symbolize the cobra. Then, slowly, with almost lazy movements, she commenced to dance. Believe me, sir, when I say that the dance is as much a part of music as percussion or reed. How infinitely more meaning Swan Lake has when danced than when merely played as an orchestral suite. And so with this peculiar, wailing jargon of the deep Orient, Wai Lang gave it meaning. She seemed to be its soul, her flesh the culmination of its oscillating tones. She followed the serinda, but always a 64th behind, as though she danced as its slave, unwillingly. Heel and toe, with hips, torso, shoulders, and with little, sinuous movements of her arms. She danced with eyes staring, her lips drawn back, teeth set. I could feel the excitement of her audience mounting. I tell you, sir, that woman exercised a power. She pulled one forward. She made one forget time and place and fetid air. She was universal woman. Do you understand me? Have you ever, in your youth, felt the red, blazing synthesis of love and hatred? Felt the urge to rend the thing you desired? Felt that elemental human passion which keeps the strongest of us teetering on the brink of madness. If you have, then you understand the emotion kindled by Wai Lang. That dance she performed, it was not the cobra dance as symbolized. It was more. It was the dance of hatred, of ecstasy. Slowly, by imperceptible degrees, its pace quickened. But still the small, unwilling movements. Still the lagging behind the serinda. Unexpectedly the cymbals beat with a vibrant clang. It was a signal. The repression was shattered. The serinda player's bow moved so rapidly it became a blur across the silken strings. The girl's feet no longer lagged. She was away, spinning, her steps intricate and amazing. Faster, faster still. Her lips were parted, her eyes bright. And then, suddenly, the music stopped, leaving her dancing there. She paused, stood tiptoe, stretching her lovely body so high her fingertips almost brushed the ceiling. And then the tension of her ecstasy left her, and she crumpled, cross-legged, head tossed forward, her short ringlets scattered over her knees. Wai Lang, the men shouted. They laughed like beings released from emotional bondage. They called her name and tossed coins that twinkled in the electric light, and jingled to the floor beside her. Wai Lang did not acknowledge the applause, not glance at the money. She stood and glided back through the curtained passage. "That perfume," Mr. Higbee was saying. "That perfume." "What?" I asked. "Did you notice her perfume?" His words jolted me back to reality. A breeze from somewhere, a faint stir in the air, brought the odor of it to me. Faint, but distinguishable amid the sultriness of Chandu, and tobacco and liquor and human sweat, the unmistakable perfume of the scrap of silk.
Thanks for joining us for today's story. We hope it brought a little inspiration to your day. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you won't miss the next one. Until then, take care and have a wonderful day.